Coming in at number 5, Nemo Was Dead. Released in 2003, Finding Nemo tells the story of an overprotective clownfish named Marlin, who, along with a regal blue tang named Dory, searches for his missing son, Nemo. Along the way, Marlin learns to take risks and comes to terms with Nemo taking care of himself. It is a triumphant father-son tale. However, this is ruined when you find out that Nemo may have been dead the entire time and that Marlin was hallucinating everything that happened. This theory states that Nemo died in the shark attack that killed his mother and his siblings at the beginning of the movie. The rest of the story that follows is Marlin trying to cope with the loss and tragedy. Moreover, Marlin's entire journey throughout the movie is a spot-on allegory for the 5 stages of grief, and his or the examples for why that's the case. He doesn't want Nemo to go to school because he isn't ready. That is denial. Marlin yells at Nemo for swimming too far out. Anger. Marlin joins Dory, turtles, etc. to find Nemo. Bargaining. Marlin watches Nemo get flushed down the toilet. Depression. And at the end, Marlin learns to let go of the past and change his ways. Acceptance. Also, if you really want to cement this theory, in Latin, Nemo means nothing. It literally translates to nothing, meaning he doesn't even exist. So, childhood ruined. Sorry.
Number 4, James and the Giant Peach. I'm hoping that as I read that title, most of you sitting watching said, ah, of course. James and the Giant Peach is a kids movie, I think, that was released in 1996, directed by Henry Selick. It tells the sad, very, very sad tale about a boy named James, an orphan rather, who lives with his 2 mean aunts. That is until, and the title may have given it away, he, yes, finds a giant peach filled with bug friends and he heads for New York City. New York, New York, bring your bugs and your ants. As a child, I never liked this movie. The blend between the stop motion and real life just confused me as a kid. Like, I couldn't tell what the difference was between like fake and real scenes when I was that young. So some scenes just straight up scared me. Even at happy parts of the film, happy, I'll say in quotations, like when James and the spider catch the evil ants. It's supposed to be a good part. Like, yeah, we did it, team, we made it, and these crazy ladies are getting what they got coming to them. Unfortunately, that scene is nightmare fuel. Like, that's a scary looking scene. Like, I'm just looking at it and it's scary. That's what horror is. Even the police officers in the crowd are watching like, what the f***? Like, it's a lot. This movie has similar notes to Nightmare Before Christmas, which I may or may not get into later. The creepy musical stop motion elements are not only impressive, but also pretty fun. Of course, this is a Disney movie, so it's mostly a good time. Randy Newman did the music for it, so it sounds like Toy Story. It sounds fun. But with Tim Burton being one of the producers, with even a cheeky little Jack Skellington cameo, that plus the fact that this is based off of a Roald Dahl novel from the early 60s, it just has to be creepy in a way. The writing, the stop motion, the actual story itself, it's so old and weird and specific and weirdly poetic, and also just scary. This movie is a horror movie. We can't just slap the word Disney on it, throw a few monologues about growing up, and then call it a family film. Like, we literally get 3 minutes into the movie, and the family's laying on a beach, looking at clouds, pointing, giggling, they're having a great time. His parents are laying next to him, they have like a picnic. Then the narrator's like, oh, and then an angry rhinoceros appeared out of nowhere and gobbled up his poor mother and father. Their troubles, if they had any at all, were over in 35 seconds flat. What? What the hell kind of movie? Like, the dude even said the amount of seconds it took for them to die. That is so specific. This kid should have become Batman. Like, what a horrible origin story. They even had the audacity to include a nightmare scene, as if this movie wasn't already a nightmare in itself. Like, dude, come on, I'm 4 years old. I'm so scared. Also, don't even get me started on that pirate ship scene. Number 3, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Disney Animation presents Groping, the musical. Yeah, this movie is different. Released in 1996, The Hunchback of Notre Dame is an animated film based off the classic novel from 1831 with the same name, written by Victor Hugo. So, taking place in the 15th century Paris, we have a hunchback named Quasimodo, who was nearly killed when he was a baby by Frollo, the Minister of Justice. He acts in the name of God, so after he commits this murderous sin, he decides to spare the child, making him a bell ringer and locking him away in the meantime. Nothing helps a bad back like yanking a 13-ton bell, you know? To make it better, let's just yank this ship. So one day, Quasimodo is made a fool in public. He decided to sneak into the town festival and have a good old time. The guards started making fun of him, and in comes a gypsy. Like, for real, they call her a gypsy like 100 times. This movie is insane. Her name is Esmeralda. The Minister of Justice is super creepy towards her. Now, if you hadn't seen this movie or heard of it, and I just started to describe the plot, you would think, oh, this is for sure an M. Night Shyamalan film. He's super creepy. Even his musical parts are so weird and off-put. Also, this movie is about being horrible to deformed people. Like, off the bat, he doesn't want this kid because of the way he looks. So we see a murderer try and get rid of a baby based on its appearance. Now, of course, he gets his hands on the big bad evil gypsy woman, but it doesn't last long. Quasimodo gets hyped up by his friends, and then he saves the day. So yeah, he gets real angry, breaks from his chains. This is a great moment in the movie. The music in this part is just epic. It actually sounds like the music from Step Brothers when Will Ferrell looks at the drum kit. So yeah, this scene's great. He swoops down, grabs Esmeralda, Spider-Man swings to the church, and then screams, "Sanctuary!" This is good fun and all, but like, they were about to burn a chick in front of everybody. And they were all on board. The entire town, they're like, yep, let's see this burning, let's do it. If this wasn't animated, it would be Game of Thrones. End of story. Number 2, Toy Story. That's right, coming in next is not only Toy Story, but the entire Toy Story franchise. Yep, I couldn't decide. I've read many theories about the Toy Story franchise, and I'm here for them all. First of all, what are the main points of this franchise? Well, a kid gets a toy, that toy is alive and sneaks around in hopes of not getting caught. Ah, cool. Sounds like you're describing Chucky though, Taylor. These movies are just fun versions of Chucky. I said it, that's it. At the end of Toy Story 1, they teach Sid a lesson. Oh, how you ask? Trauma. They give Sid many, many years of trauma. Like sure, Sid was being kind of a and they had to tell him to chill out, but like, I did stuff like that when I was younger. Who didn't? So we see all the toys do this theatrical production of The Walking Dead, and they scare Sid as a lesson. Like, these movies are so fun. Probably my favorite franchise from Disney Pixar. But in Toy Story 2, the nightmare scene? Yeah, I was 5 years old. Come on. Also, Toy Story 3, Lotso Huggin' Bear straight up has a scary baby sidekick. That's already enough. Like, that's it. They accepted their fate at the end of that movie. They accepted the fact that they're going to die, and they made sure to hold hands and smile and look at each other right before they do. This is a horror film. Toy Story 4, also a horror film. The entire time, like all of Toy Story 4 is just a horror film. Every time that ventriloquist dummy came on screen, he's walking all weird, he's like, bah. My shoulders kept cocking up, I didn't like it. The horror elements in that movie are practically invisible to a young eye, but seeing it as an adult, it's scary. As soon as we met Gabby, we all knew something evil was afoot. Like, I thought Toy Story 4 was great. Toy Story 3 was the perfect ending. So when they announced another one, I was like, oh, why are you gonna ruin it? It was fine, I'll say it. The ending is still somehow more sad. I don't know how they could do it. I didn't even know it's possible. And finally, number 1, The Nightmare Before Christmas. This time of the year really is my favorite. You can fly through all the Halloween Town movies, slam them all, boom, done. And then as soon as you're done with all the Halloween classics, you can almost immediately start watching Christmas movies. Yeah, I'm one of those insane people that fires up Home Alone in November. Sue me, what's up? The Nightmare Before Christmas is a rare gem that can be enjoyed anytime from October to December. Released before I even existed back in 1993, directed by the same guy that brought you James and the Giant Peach, Henry Selick, The Nightmare Before Christmas tells the strange tale of what exactly happens when the king of Halloween Town finds Christmas. And it's beautiful. Mostly. Using the voices of Danny Elfman, Catherine O'Hara, and Chris Sarandon, this stop-motion musical was inspired after Tim Burton witnessed a storefront in the process of changing from their Halloween display to a Christmas display. He said something about the reindeer mixed with jack-o'-lanterns just sparked an idea. So, sure, it's fun, and the songs will be stuck in your head for like 28 years, but this movie is a horror film. Hey, if you disagree, you're a ghoul in disguise. Got ya. The opening song gives us an idea of the players we're working with in Halloween Town. The first line, boys and girls of every age, won't you like to see something strange? No man, I'm 2. Boys and girls of every age, maybe like boys and girls who are over the age of 16 and can tell the difference between what's real and what's fake. Yeah, I don't want to know any of these monsters exist, sir. No thank you. And also, Oogie Boogie, the guy made of bugs? If you can cut from the girl's look to my look, like, that's the same look I had in the theater. Yeah, that was all of our face in the theater when he was like, my bugs, and was melting into lava. Kids weren't laughing, they were covering their face. Wanna know why, Disney? Because as much as I believed that Jack was real and Santa was real, I also believe that these were real too. I've always wanted to see this musical on Broadway, I'll tell you that. I'll choreograph the whole thing, let's do it. I'll even play Jack. I got the lankiness to pull it off.
Coming in our our number 5 spot, Frozen. Frozen is one of Disney's more recent films and it came out in 2013. And it's easily one of the most popular Disney movies. But even in such a popular movie, Disney is still going to make some mistakes. And this is one of them. When Anna and Hans share their first dance to Love is an Open Door, which by the way is a super catchy song, the two are gallivanting around the castle and then they somehow end up on the top of a lighthouse because why not? Now I imagine this part of the scene was thrown in to add a little romance as the pair's silhouettes are reflected onto a sail of a nearby ship. But something that creators didn't add was the walkway the pair is standing on. So basically they're just dancing in midair. I mean yes, it does make it more dreamlike and romantic, but come on guys, use some logic. Well actually come to think of it, one of the main characters in this movie is a talking snowman. So yeah, I'm gonna guess logic isn't really a factor.
Coming in at number 4 we have Andy's mum is a toy abandoner. Yeah, this one is crazy. A lot of us grew up with Toy Story, I certainly did. The movie was released in 1995 and takes place in a world where anthropomorphic toys come to life when humans are not present, with the plot focusing on the relationship between an old-fashioned pull-string cowboy doll named Woody and an astronaut action figure Buzz Lightyear. These are all toys that belong to a young boy named Andy. This theory goes, however, that Andy's mum is a toy abandoner. According to one theorist, Andy's mum was the original owner of Jessie. If you remember Jessie's flashback of how she ended up discarded and boxed with her owner Emily having given her away after growing too old to play with her. If you put 2 and 2 together, the logical conclusion is that Andy's mum is Emily. To add fuel to this theory, in the movie Andy wears a human-sized version of Jessie's hat, 4 years prior to Jessie appearing in Toy Story 2, and to top it off, in the Jessie flashback scenes you can see that same hat hanging on the bed of young Emily. Case closed. Emily is Andy's mum, and Andy's mum is cruel and she needs to go to prison. Coming in at number 3, who is Andy's monster? As we know, Pixar movies all exist in the same universe. They are all connected, so saying that Inside Out is connected to Toy Story 3, which is connected to Monsters Inc. Since this reveal, many have been making assumptions as to who the monsters are of other children in the universe, particularly Andy from Toy Story, because as we know, Monsters Inc., every monster has a child, and they come into their room at night and scare them. Boo. So this theory was sparked after the release of Monsters Inc. after Jessie from Toy Story appeared in Boo's room. However, we don't know if every child in the human world has a monster, so one person decided there was only one way to figure it out, and that was by finding Andy's door in the monster world. We know that this is what Andy's door looks like. It is a white door with 5 rectangular panels. Now that is tough to spot in Monsters Inc. simply because of how many doors there are. Just take a look. Here we encounter a hiccup though. We know that Monsters Inc. is set in the future with the doors serving as a time portal. Monsters Inc. was released in 2001, so we can assume that perhaps they travelled to Andy's door way earlier. So let's head to Monsters University. And we have found it. This is Andy's door. Let's return to the picture of Andy's door though, the one with the cardboard box and the wallpaper with blue and clouds on it. Now take a look at this picture. Right when the monsters are all warming up before scaring in Monsters Inc., one of the backgrounds Randall is camouflaging is Andy's wallpaper. There we go. Toy Story, Monsters Inc. connected, and that is the monster of Andy's. Coming in at number 2, Carl is Dead. Up is a great movie, a tearjerker, a movie we still think about with sadness, but a great movie nonetheless. Released back in 2009, the film centers on an elderly widower named Carl Fredricksen and an earnest boy named Russell. By tying thousands of balloons to his house, Carl sets out to fulfill his dreams to see the wilds of South America and complete a promise made to his late wife Ellie. We're all familiar with the story, however there is a truly bleak theory out there that is going to crush all of your hopes and dreams. This theory states that Carl is dead, and was dead the entire time. It is said that he died at the beginning of the movie, and everything following that is his journey to heaven. According to some theorists, he passed away in his sleep the night after the courts tell him he needs to leave his home and move to a retirement home. Following on from that, it is also said that the young boy Russell is Carl's guardian angel, and that he needs one last badge in order to become a senior wilderness explorer, or in this interpretation, the last act that would earn him his wings. I quote, "I could help you cross the street, I could help you cross your yard, I could help you cross your porch. Well, I gotta help you cross something. Turns out he may be helping him cross over to the other side." The theory goes on to state, I quote, "Russell's final badge requires him to help a senior citizen. This makes sense. Russell's other badges were preparing him in various ways for the final test, which is to help a senior citizen into the afterlife. Russell's innocence and devotion shows his purity, and the example he sets through that purity helps Carl see the error in his ways of thinking." It also goes on to state that the raising of the house represents Carl's initial transition from the physical world to the spiritual world. Honestly, this theory theory makes me very sad. And finally, coming in at number 1, Pixar's Cars. Cars is a 2006 comedy produced by Pixar Animation Studios. The movie is set in a world populated entirely by anthropomorphic talking cars and other vehicles, so it may come as a surprise to you that there are a ton of legends and theories about this kids movie. Now, as I said before, the dominant form of life in the world of cars are sentient automobiles with seemingly no humans in sight. The cars though appear to have grown to human level intelligence, with the ability to produce technology and an organized civilization. Now, while the movie just presents us with the idea that this is simply a world of sentient cars, folks have other theories, and that perhaps this isn't a separate universe but is actually our own tens of thousands of years in the future. And on top of that, perhaps humans aren't gone but instead are very, very different. The main hint here is that the cars still retain small, very human details such as windows, doors, and door handles. If there were no humans, why would the cars need any of these things? Unless, of course, there were beings who would need to open the cars to get inside, beings like us. The theory here is that humans have become the cars, which is also dubbed the homunculus theory, which states that there are actually people inside the cars, and they are the source of the car's personality, intelligence, and everything else. The car itself is just an external body of these human-derived creatures. Some folks believe this human-car hybrid stemmed from a biological calamity or plague that may have potentially occurred in the universe and as a result killed off the vast majority of people and animal life. Perhaps what killed off most of the humans is still a danger to the rest of civilization, with everyone turning to their cars, creating a symbiotic relationship between man and machine. Eventually, specially designed cars were built and human babies were produced in amniotic vats, becoming embedded within an automotive exoskeleton.
Kicking off the list at number 5, Monsters Inc. Now, of course, I'm going to start with an obvious contender. Monsters Inc. was released in 2001 by Disney Pixar, directed by Pete Docter, and stars John Goodman and Billy Crystal. This family fun monster tale took the monsters that were hiding in your closet and saw what was on the other side. And it turns out the monster world is in the middle of a scare crisis, so they have to rely on the scarers to go and get energy from the screams of children. Now, this movie, of course, has real horror elements in it. First of all, they're monsters who try and scare kids. That's their jobs, that's their 9 to 5, is to ruin kids' lives. So even though they may sound like Steve Buscemi, they're still pretty frightening for a kid. Like, I remember when I saw this, I was in 1st grade. You know what part gave me nightmares the most? The part where the dude's lips get sucked like off of his face. What a nightmare. My lips were so chapped growing up, that hits way too close to home. That dude wins the Kylie Jenner lip challenge, hands down. Hands down. So fat and fast, it's crazy. This movie's quite funny, obviously. I mean, with John Goodman as Sully and Billy Crystal as Mike, the two actors are comedic powerhouses, and after the movie's release, literally everybody recognized their voices. Now, if I watched The Big Lebowski, I just hear those monsters talking. Like, if I was watching it and not looking, I would hear Mike Wazowski. That's it, or not Mike Wazowski. I would just hear Sully and Randall just talking and arguing the entire time. It's great, you gotta try it. But there are many theories that pin Monsters Inc. as a horror film, and I'm here for it. For starters, one of the biggest clues we have is actually spotted in a Toy Story short film titled Partysaurus Rex. Now, before we show you that part, we gotta cover one thing first. So in Monsters Inc., Randall is explaining to Sully that humans are the monsters the whole time, and they make toilet seat covers out of our monsters' fur. Alright, so lock that in, you got it? Cool, sweet. Cut to Toy Story Toon's Partysaurus Rex. Released in 2012, there's a part where Bonnie is playing with Rex in the bathtub, and for a brief moment you can see the toilet seat, and it is, in fact, the same fur as James P. Sullivan himself. Check it out. While it's not a shocker that humans suck both in real life and in the Disney life, it is quite alarming considering these movies have been known to be part of the Pixar theory, which is another video for another time. I don't have enough oxygen for that one right now. The movie ends with the monsters turning to comedy to get reactions, using laughs instead of screams, which I feel like they should have just tried first. I don't know. I feel like this is still scary though. Like, imagine you're sound asleep and then a monster with 30 eyeballs is like, hey, how we doing? Any anniversaries here tonight? I would wake up and my bed. I would faint right off the bat. That's not that much better. Also, all of these doors in that factory, each door leading to a different place in the human world. Like, of course we saw the answer to the question, what if a child got in there? And it's quite fun. But this is a very scary place to be. Like, if this was live action, it would look more like the closing scene in Cabin in the Woods. That's just a place you don't want to stumble across, period. We're seeing a closer look at what the monsters get up to with Monsters at Work premiering on Disney Plus sometime in 2021.
At number number 4, Toy Story 2. Toy Story 2 is one of the rare cases where the sequel is just as good as the original, and then following this, a third movie came out, which again was just as good. And amazingly enough, just when you thought they were done, it was announced that Toy Story 4 will be coming out next year. Can't wait. But let's get back to Toy Story 2 for now. This movie came out in 1999, and in it we see pals Ham and Rex watching TV, and they're flipping through some channels. They then turn off the TV and there's no reflection of these two on the screen. So either Rex and Ham are supposed to be secret vampire toys, or the animators forgot to put the toys' reflections on the TV screen. If I had to guess, I'm gonna go with secret vampire toys because that's more fun. At number 3, Pocahontas. This movie came out in 1995. In one scene, Pocahontas and her best friend Nicoma are walking and holding hands, yet their shadows, which are cast ahead of them, are not. All of the rest of the shadowing in this movie is on point. This is the only time where it wasn't depicted correctly. But to be fair, shadows are a complicated thing to portray in movies since they can bend, overlap, or elongate in strange ways. So we aren't going to hold this one against them. In at number 2, Mulan. This movie came out in 1998. In one scene at the beginning of the movie, we see Mulan go to a matchmaker to make sure she possesses the proper etiquette to impress her future in-laws. During this meeting, Mulan's mischievous little cricket friend Cricky ends up in the matchmaker's cup of tea. Mulan tries to grab the cup of tea out of the matchmaker's hands before she takes a sip, but this causes the matchmaker to fall back onto the embers and basically results in her butt catching on fire. Mulan then throws a pot of tea on the matchmaker's face, and somehow that puts out the fire that's on her butt. Yeah, I don't think that's how it works. And at number 1, Aladdin. This movie came out in 1992 and it's definitely a fan favorite. There are a lot of hilarious characters in this movie, one of them being Jasmine's pet tiger Raja. In one scene near the beginning of the movie, we see a suitor come to the castle to ask Jasmine for her hand in marriage. Now, like any good pet, Raja is very protective over his owner, and he's not into this suitor guy. So he bites into the seat of the guy's trousers and we see his polka dot hearted boxers. When we later see Raja in the courtyard, he has a piece of the boxers in his mouth, but in the previous scene the boxers were fully intact. So instead, Raja should have had a purple piece of cloth in his mouth since he bit off a piece of the trousers, not the boxers.